You know, it was all started back in the 1800s by a bunch of white people who just grew corn and traded with the local Native Americans. That was all before the Indians were told to move out of the neighborhood and go to Kansas. Now, some did stay behind and they did start a daycare. Yes, Peru has changed a lot in the last 173 years. We have electricity, cars, clean water, computers, hip-hop, women can vote, and potato olays. But not all changes have been good. You see, over the last 12 months, 6 businesses that have been a mainstay in Peru for at least 16 years have closed shop and left town. So the question has to be asked, people, what the f is going on in Peru? See, here's what I mean. Peru is a lot like a cookie. To make a cookie, you have to have ingredients and elements just like any incorporated town or city. Basically, you need 3 elements or ingredients for a business to survive in a town. Whether it be bars, restaurants, retail stores, or Japanese video game stores, if you're into that whole sort of thing. Now, as we all know, most people like to live where there are businesses and attractions. Because have you ever seen millions of people living in the middle of nowhere for no reason? Besides Saudi Arabia? The first ingredient in our cookie recipe is a big enough population. Now, I don't think that's much of a problem right now, because in 1990, when the 6 were still open for business, the US Census reported 12,843 people living in Peru, or 1 Cookie Monster for every 1,070 and a quarter persons. Now fast forward to last year, 2005, and there was only 12,732 people living in Peru. That's less than a 1% decrease. So it's safe to say that Peru has a big enough population or enough people to support business. That brings us to ingredient number 2, the economy. Now when making cookies, I like to melt my economy in the microwave. Makes it easier to mix in with the people. Just a little tip. Now, this is where things start to get a little iffy. In interviews ran in the Kokomo and Peru Tribune, all the owners said they were closing business because they weren't making enough money. So obviously, people aren't spending enough money in Peru. So the question is, why? In 1990, gas was about $1.16 a gallon. So today we pay about $7 to $16 more for a tank of gas when you factor in inflation. And if you drive a golf cart or a moped. And by the way, if you don't know what inflation is, just Google it. Google it. You know, that sounds kind of dirty, doesn't it? It just doesn't sound right. But you know what I mean. Now back in 1990, an average Peru family was making about $37,000 by today's inflation standards. Now you can estimate they make about $41,000. Now they're making a little bit more, but in all honesty, how much extra money a family can spend depends on the family. So it can be reasoned that 5-Star, Grand Street Bar and Grill, and Penny's all went out of business because there just isn't enough money in Peru. But what about Goodwill or the Corner Curl? While population and business are very delicious as they are, they really aren't a cookie until you add demand. You see, demand is like the oven. Without it, a business is just a bunch of, well, dough. You see, the nut meter basis of anything is supply and demand. If demand is too low, a company can't function and either has to move or just go out of business. If it's set too high, well, your cookies will just burn. The final question is this: how many more businesses are going to leave or close shop? And how do we turn Peru into a delicious, mouth-watering cookie that everyone wants? Think about it. Go educate yourself and eat a cookie yourself. See you.